am definitely, I'm all about all of this, and this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Honestly, it started way before even that. Like I think
Oh, wow.
yeah, like I think as soon as I entered a training school and I started doing a couple of my first bumps and like doing the moves, like that's when I was like, yeah, no, like this is it. Like I really enjoyed it. Like just you could put me in for wrestling training from, like 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. every day, and I would want to be there all day, every day. Like at no point did I get tired. Like you obviously get sore and like physically tired,
Obviously.
but
Yeah.
like I was just so happy and so in love with it. Like I could be there all day and I was like, I'm good. Like I want the travel, I want the bump taking, I want to run the ropes, I want to learn new stuff. Like right away, I was like, yeah, I love this.
So I'm glad you mentioned running the ropes. I've had this question in my head for a while, but I haven't asked anybody yet. So you're my first person to ask this. So
Okay.
people hit the ropes differently. Some people will put their hand on the bottom and then also on the top, or the middle
Right.
and the top. And then some people will just do the top. Which one do you really do? And then have you tried either one, or have you kind of asked anybody why they hit the ropes this way as opposed to another way?
Yeah, so I do just the top.
Okay.
So usually people are taught, at least from my experience in training schools, you're taught both methods. And I think for certain individuals who are shorter, sometimes it's
Hmm.
wise to use the bottom rope and like or the middle rope because if you don't, you might actually like hit the ropes and fall through. So it's
Fall
just
through,
like
yeah.
it's a safety measure for most people. I
Okay.
never found it super comfortable for me. Like it just doesn't come naturally to me to grab both, especially because usually like somebody's whipping you off and they have your other arm or whatever, so you just don't really have, the thought to do that. So for me, it's just natural to grab one. There's no right or wrong way. I guess there's a preference for people, but for
Obviously.
me, it's always just been the one. And I think that's the more popular way anyway. I think most people are taught that way,
Hmm.
but definitely for some people, it's more beneficial. Or like if you know you're hitting the ropes and some shows have rings that just don't have the greatest ropes and they kind of get loose. So like that's probably another good idea. Just grab the other one just in case. But yeah.
Nice. Okay. I was always curious about that, and so I figured I'd start asking. So I'm glad.
Yeah.
Now, you're when you first going through the school, obviously you have some kind of thought process as to what your character is going to be and who you're supposed to be in the ring. And then when you get out of it and start working, that will obviously change and evolve and change. Who did you think you were going to be when you first started? And then who do you think you've kind of settled into? And obviously not settled, but like who have
Mhm.
you evolved into now?
So it's actually kind of funny because when I was first trying to come up with a character, I was trying to come up with like a hip kind of cool version of a person, just someone who's more, like an I don't want to say like out of high school, but like those like super cool kids you'd watch in like High School Musical or something where it's like a cool hip person. I was like, yeah, like I want to be someone cool and hip that everyone would like. But
Yeah.
my trainer at the time, Rob Fuego, so I'm Ukrainian and I speak Russian. So his
Oh, that's
thing,
awesome.
mhm. So his thing was like, oh, you need to play a character that speaks Russian. So that was
Ah,
his kind of suggestion. And like obviously when you're training, you're usually the first few shows you do are from your training school, whatever promotion they run. So he'd be booking that. So I was like, okay, if that's kind of what he wants, then that's what I'll do. So that actually ended up being my gimmick for my first half of my career, which was definitely a different experience. It's not something I like considered doing myself. I was never like, oh yeah, I want to be like the villain from Russia, because like
yeah.
it's been done. It's been done by a lot of
Oh, it's been
people.
done for decades. Yeah.
It has, yeah. And like maybe not so much by females, but it has been done. And it's one of those where
Right.
like it'll work all the time, but it wasn't necessarily like my favorite way to do it. But it opened up opportunities for me to try to, supposedly my character didn't speak English, so it kind of gave me the opportunity to work the crowd and get them to hate me without really talking, other than,
Right.
like you speak in Russian, they'll boo, but it's like, what else can you do to get them to understand why they're booing you? So
Yeah.
like it gave me that experience, but over time it kind of evolved. I didn't want to do that forever, so I ended up kind of being more in tune with what I do now. I kind of looked at and I try to, be authentic to my character because at the end of the day, if you don't believe in the character, then the fans won't believe in the character. So you kind of
True.
gotta believe what you're doing, right? So for me, I was always huge into fitness and fitness modeling and stuff like that. So I kind of evolved my character into being an international model. I go by the moniker of like the muscle Barbie. So
Yeah.
I come out and like I've done a couple of magazines, so I kind of throw that in there and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like this huge international like magazine star. And I come out with like doing selfies, and if there's somebody else with me, they take all these pictures with me, and I like record myself in the ring beating someone up. Like I'll choke them on the ropes and have my phone there recording it. So like I just think for me it's like I took the character of what I thought maybe would be something that's somewhat close to how I am in real life in terms of the fitness stuff. So at least it kind of
Right.
makes sense for who I am. And then I amplified it to like what would be the most annoying thing someone could do who's like that. And that's like, be super conceited and be like, I'm a model, So
Yeah.
like for me, it's fun doing it like that. Like I really enjoy my character right now and the way I've built it. So I'm having fun.
How much did you take from Tyler Breeze? Because obviously, he when he was in NXT with the selfie stick and the furry selfie stick and also doing all that fun stuff, like I imagine that probably, really kind of helped out as well.
Definitely. So it's one of those things where like I didn't want to outright steal the gimmick, right? Because if someone
Obviously,
else
yeah.
is doing it, they're doing it. So, I didn't do the whole selfie stick thing, like as cool as it is or as much as it helps. Like I wanted it to be more feminine in terms of like what does the annoying female influencer do? And it would be
Yeah.
like, halfway through the match, I'll pick up my phone and I'll check my teeth in it. Or, like do something like that. Or like my opponent, or like one of the things I do too is like I'll come out to the ring and then after I enter the ring, I make the referee take pictures of me and do a photo shoot. So
Oh, I
like
love that.
well, yeah, like I'll do something a little bit more like like it's similar to what he does because he'll do
Yeah.
the whole he looks at himself, whatever. But then I also put it into like I do stuff with another female Silesia Sparks, so we sometimes tag team. So I'll also have her take the phone and I'll be like, oh, film me doing this.
Yeah.
Or like I did a couple bits where I had an intergender tag match and like like the Bubba Ray like Devon get the tables. I was like, oh, Saber get the cell phone. Like we're about to set up for like a cell phone gimmick, so I tried to kind of like make it a bit more of my own and be as annoying with it as I can be.
Yeah.
So yeah, like because it's like how much can you really do with a cell phone, right? Because everyone's like, oh yeah, Tyler Breeze, Austin Theory, they all do it, and I'm like, they do.
I guess Austin Theory did do that for a while, didn't he? Yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot
he
about
did.
that.
And
Yeah.
I was like, they totally do it, but like, do they do it quite like I do it right now with like the
Right.
annoying factor of like the referee has to do this person has to do that, right? So like I'm trying to be a bit more unique with it, so hopefully it's working.
And I want to throw something at you. So we all know how the girls on Instagram that are fitness wannabe models are always
Mhm.
doing everything in the gym, normally hip thrusts and everything like that.
Oh
Have
yeah.
you thought about bringing that into the ring as well, where like maybe I'm trying to think how you would do like a glute workout while you're just maybe random bridges or like you're just little things
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually a pretty good idea. Or like
Yeah.
even
There you
bring
go.
like one of those like bands and like do like curls.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
That's
like
a
have
yeah.
or have your opponent on you and then like you're doing the hip thrust as well, like off the second rope or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good yeah, I like it.
You can have it. It's all yours.
Thank you.
Well, there's enough of those women out on, online as well. So I mean, taking
Oh,
that is just so easy. Yeah.
oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. It's even better when like you can tell the people behind them are like, we're all trying to work out here. What are we doing right now?
I know,
Why
yeah.
are we all being filmed? Yeah. Well, so I mean, obviously, not only with the character building and evolution the way it is, but like creating a move set is also something that will constantly change and evolve as well. What
Mhm.
kind of thought process do you kind of have when it comes to either adding or subtracting moves to your move set to where you try things out and you're like, oh, maybe that didn't work, or maybe that didn't work with this person, but it might work with like this person. How does that work for you?
Yeah, so a couple of things I consider. Obviously, as wrestling evolves, some moves become extremely popular, others become less
Right.
popular. So
The
one of the things
destroyer for sure. Everybody loves doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like even like, the RKO, like a
Yeah.
cutter. There's a lot of things like Sling Blade. There's a lot that are very, very popular, or like certain combinations of things. Like you notice somebody doing a snap mare, then like they see a clothesline right away
Right.
for on the indies for us. So like for me, I try to make my move sets so that I mean, obviously you can't have a completely unique move set. Like there's just things you're gonna use that other people use, but I don't want to do the same thing that everybody else is doing.
Mhm.
So I try to either bring back something that people haven't done in forever, or
Mm.
I try to do something a little bit different. So I'll always consider something like, okay, what's a variation of this move, or what's a variation of this?
Oh,
And
nice.
my other thing is I am quite a small person. Like at 5'4", I'm 122 pounds. Like I'm lean, but I'm small. Like most people, if they see me, think I'm like 90 pounds, which is like slightly offensive, but also I'm like, oh well, actually, it's all muscle because I'm
Yeah.
the 125.
Right. Thanks, but muscle weighs more than fat. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like it's one of those where the majority of the time, like 9 out of 10 times, I am the smaller person in the ring. So for me to do my move set, I try to do one where I know I can give it to the majority of the people I'll wrestle. Um, because yeah, at the end of the day, like there's plenty of times where I was like, oh, I want to maybe do, a couple of like more power moves, but then you try
Right.
it with like 3 out of the 4 girls and it doesn't work, and you're like, okay. So, obviously I can't have that as my finisher if I can't do it to half the people. Right.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where you kind of got to work with your size and know that like you got to make sure that whatever you're doing, you can do it. So, and that's one of the things too, where some, like if you train with a lot of men, sometimes it's easier to give moves to men than women because their center of gravity is better. So they're just able to jump up better and help you out better. But then you work with a female whose center of gravity is a bit lower, and you're like, oh, like this is a smaller girl who should weigh less than this guy, but I can't get her up for this move. So
Right.
it's one of those where you got to really like actually go to training and practice and see what you can and cannot do, because there's so many moves where in theory I was like, oh yeah, like I could do this. Then I tried it out and I was like, oh man, like like I don't know, maybe I can't do this, right? So for me, like I have the rule of if I try it 2 or 3 times and it's just failing, then I'm moving on with my life and I'm gonna try something else, right? Because it's like
Nice.
I'm pretty quick to either pick it up or not, right? So
Right. Now, I'm always curious about that because I mean, everybody obviously, like you said, well, first off, if you're watching a card, you want to watch all the matches to see who is doing what and how they're doing what, and then you don't want to do a lot of the things that have been done over and over and over again.
mhm.
So I imagine that is also a factor. And then, like you said, like depending on who your opponent is, like let's say, like you said, you're only 122 pounds. If you're facing someone that is over 200 pounds, you're like, well, most of those moves that I was going to do on maybe somebody half that size is not going to happen tonight. So maybe I'll
Right.
figure out something else. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
always curious about that. And then they always say your finisher should be someone that you could do on someone that is Hornswoggle size. They always say Rey Mysterio, but I want to make it smaller. Hornswoggle size all the way up to Great Khali or the Giant. Like that's like you want to have something that size. Which I would
Yeah.
see some of these men and women. I'm like, you can't do that on everybody. Like, why are we still doing this as a finisher? But that's their situation and not mine. So I'm always curious about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always that, or like you always want to have two where one is like a submission or something. That way,
Right.
in case you can't do the other one. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what if you're in a submission match? Then you don't have anything. Like, what are you coming out of
Right.
pulling stuff out
Yeah.
of your ass?
I remember like I was talking to somebody else I was training with, and like the advice I got was you want to have a regular finish move, a submission finish move, and something you can do off the top rope.
Right.
It's like another one. So it's like your signature moves, which like I haven't quite done the top rope one yet because I just haven't found really, like everyone does the frog splash, and
Yeah.
I'm no Jeff Hardy, so I'm not gonna be doing no swantons or anything like that. But so for me, I'm like, I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. So again, it's like you have to find your niche, but it's good to have like something submissive, something regular, and something from the top, because you never know what kind of match or situation you'll be in. So,
Right. Yeah, and a leg drop from the top is just gonna hurt your butt more than anything else. So it's like, why were we gonna
oh
do
my
this
God.
overnight?
Yeah, I used to actually do that when I first started. That was one of
Oh,
my, and like after like maybe 5, 6 times, I was like, ah, I'm good. Like,
yeah. Thank you, but no. Yeah,
yeah,
not gonna happen.
yeah, exactly.
So I have a question, and it's you may not have been asked about this yet. Can you tell us a story about double stick tape?
Yeah. Truthfully, I'm one of those people that doesn't usually use double stick
Oh,
tape.
okay.
I don't. There's one time it came to bite me in the ass for not using it. After I went around being like, I don't